Welcome to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Well, welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisen, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And joining me, where are you joining me from, Faisal?
I'm in Connecticut, home base today.
Connecticut, and it's Faisal Hoque, and his most recent book, for those of you who can see it, is Reinvent, Navigating Business Transformation in a Hyperdigital Era. Boy, is it hyper-digital these days. Like I was just saying to him before we came on, with the advent of AI and how Google's now integrated, Microsoft and all these companies have jumped on the AI bandwagon. There isn't anybody today that isn't talking about it, but that's only one small aspect of what we're going to talk about. What I am going to do is I'm going to give the listeners just a tad bit information about you, Faisal. He's an accomplished entrepreneur, noted thought leader, technology innovator, advisor to CEO, BODs, and the U.S. federal government, and author of more than 25 years of cross-industry success. He's the founder of Sudoku, Next Chapter, and other companies. They focus on embedding sustainability and transformational changes. Furthermore, he serves as a strategic partner and innovation leader for CACI, a $6.7 billion company whose mission and enterprises, technologies, and expertise play a vital role in the U.S. national security. You can learn more about Faisal at FAISALHOQUE.com. There you can learn more about his books, his insights, his ventures. And I want to mention, and I hope I'm right here, my son has chronic myelogenous leukemia, and you donate the proceeds of this book to actually the research going on in that arena. Is that blood cancers?
Yeah, it is, because like you, Greg, I have a son, my only son, who's now 21. He was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a type of blood cancer, when he was 18. He's fine, he's doing okay, but it's a journey, as you know, so I decided to donate everything that I can in terms of the book proceeds to the Blood Cancer Society.
Well, and I'm a big advocate of Leukemia Society. I was on team in training. I raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. My son still has chronic myelogenous leukemia as an executive at Adobe. And he has lived with the disease now and a drug called Sprycel. Prior to that, it was a different drug called Gleevec for the last, he's now going to be 42 years old. So he got it when he was 21. He got it at his senior year at UCLA. Never thought it would happen, but the survival rate now is just amazing. So kudos to you for doing that. Now let's dig in, because my listeners maybe want to hear that story, but they also want to hear the other story. We just said you were on the Inside Personal Growth in 2015, where we talked about your book, Survive to Thrive, and then you were on the other one that you had called Connected. So much happened in our world at the amazing rate since our discussion 9 years ago, including the fact that you're now the author of 10 award-winning books, so you're a busy guy. Can you address some of the issues that you see are affecting businesses today, and how business owners can learn to make, get a quote, better decisions about how to navigate their business with the advent of all the technology that's now available to them?
Well, a couple of things. Technology is obviously a big thing. And, if you just look at I was actually flipping through my very first book, which I wrote 25 years ago, arguing that how technology is going to have a huge impact, how business models are crafted. I wrote that in 1999, when the internet was just on the cusp of taking off. And 25 plus years later, when I wrote Reinvent, I mean, we are in a completely different place from a technological point of view, obviously, because now we have AI and all sorts of other things, IoT and blah, blah, blah. But more than that, I mean, if you look at the, global climate, meaning geopolitical climate, if you look at post-pandemic era, next generation of workforce, people's, lifestyle and longevity of life, all that has a huge impact of how we craft businesses and produce, offering for our customer base, and how we actually sustain and while not destroying our planet altogether with this technology that we're creating, right? So there's a whole bunch of complexity that exists now that didn't exist even like 2 years ago, right? So, so if you want to address that, you have to elevate yourself at a higher power first than just how do I build my next company or next product and services, because along with all that power comes a huge responsibility, and so in Reinvent, I explore that quite a bit, and I'm actually working on my next book that particularly focus on the opportunity and the governance challenges with AI. So we can dive into it.
Well, I think I mentioned that I watched the 60-minute special about NVIDIA and the conversation, and then the funding that occurred to this robotics company. It made a particular impact on me because, we all know robots are being here, but now we see BMW adapting these robots at a very big level. And the guy said millions of robots. I mean, might even have said billions of robots will now be coming into our world, which is actually going to change the whole makeup. And so you mentioned that businesses will be compelled to change entire mindsets, attitudes, and assumptions about how they operate and grow. I just pointed a couple of things out, AI and robots. You state the book is geared to address this unprecedented journey that businesses will be faced with and adapt and transform. In your opinion, what are some of the issues that businesses need to address to make their transformation successful? And again, because we're human beings and this neural pathway system up here has to be reprogrammed, it's really about how we change the mindsets and attitudes and assumptions that is really going to make us successful or not successful. Is correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, that's obviously the growth, the rate of change is a lot higher than it ever used to be, right? But if you look at last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, we've gone through many changes, and the jobs are no longer the same. They are very different. The way you do marketing, the way you do sales, the way you produce things, et cetera, it's all changed, right? But what if you think of in the context of AI and robot, what will happen? And it will not only impact the obvious one that we think about is, okay, robots are in the factory, so the manufacturing jobs are going to go away because robots are going to, put together these, the cars, and like you were talking about the BMW as an example, et cetera, et cetera. But you can look at even knowledge workers, right? I mean, somebody who does the research, you can go to a variety of AI engines already where you can say, okay, well, tell me what's going on in this field and give me with the citation, and it pulls it together. What that means is that if you have a research team that used to consist of 20 people, maybe now you'll have only 2 who ask the right question, right? So what happens to the other 18 people, right? So that has an individual impact and that has organizational impact, right? So the individual impact is that you will have to be a very deep domain expert who can ask the right question, not just do repeatable work that day in, day out, always doing the same thing over and over again, right? So that's responsibility on individual, being that highly curious, deep thinker, and creative thinker, critical thinker that asks the right question, because you will have engines to get you the answer, right? But the engine cannot produce the right answer that lets you ask the deeper question. and you actually have a firm grasp of the subject matter, right? On the just one point, and then you can ask me the next one. On the organizational level, what that means is that you will be, it'll be highly competitive to attract those, the limited amount of critical thinkers and creative thinkers, and motivate them to rally behind your cause or your mission or purpose, because they'll be highly sought after.
Well, critical thinking skills are something that we need to actually work on ourselves as individuals. I know when I started working with ChatGPT, it really was more about how well I was able to craft the prompt based on what I wanted. And, there's full courses out there now where people are talking about how to craft these prompts and do this to get the machine to make trillions of calculations and find the data and then bring it back to you. I get that. But it's not just asking the question. It's then what are you going to do with the data once you get it? Because in the end, it's still just data, right? It isn't really
that's right.
Your answer. So I think, human beings are not going to go away. Our ability to think critically about it, if anything, this is going to make us better thinkers, faster thinkers, more efficient thinkers, in my estimation. And you mentioned that since the pandemic, that our customers are not only who they used to be, and you use an example of this online shopping, which, look, we all know Amazon, there's all places to go shopping today online. How big has that market grown, and what are the expectations for the future? Because I'm looking at brick and mortar, and I've been seeing it erode now for the last 4 years, maybe 6 years. People with shopping centers, people with this and that and the other thing that are going to be converted to condominiums or whatever's going to happen. But the reality is, where do you see this headed? And what is the level of sustainability of this kind of venture?
So look, I mean, the retail shopping as we know today, it just you go through a search engine, you browse through it, I mean, online retail, and then you buy something. And now because you have the ability to instantly return something that you don't like, you can return it, right? So that's fine. But the next phase of this growth is going to be augmented reality, whereby you can actually see things in a three-dimensional way, like a holographic way. You can stand in front of a camera and you can pick his shirt and it puts on your body to see how it looks like. All this augmented reality, and decision support in terms of retail decision is going to happen. It's already happening in many factors. I mean, there are things that are already in works where you look at the phone and a holographic image of a shoe, whatever, is going to come up, right? It's already happening. But that doesn't mean that gathering places are going to go away. I mean, we are still, look, if anything, the pandemic has taught us is that we are still social beings, and we are, the products are targeted us as the consumer, and we're social beings. So the social gathering place is still going to be there. But I think it's going to take a whole new form than as we know today. Today, it's very, it's one-dimensional. It's, it's not totally integrated. Those all are going to change. So, but that creates a whole set of new challenges, how the next generation, retailer or any of these commerce that are targeted to the consumer are going to craft. But I mean, you can also see that, I mean, even in my hometown, I mean, the mall is largely empty. There are, office buildings that got converted into these apartment buildings because people are working more from home. But we're also learning that working from home 100% of the time doesn't work, because you still need that social gathering and interaction in order to create a collaborative, etc.
They've said that loneliness is one of the biggest things that
absolutely
challenges with. Now, I do see that, and it is important to be with like-minded people and groups and to share your ideas and do whatever. But I also think that the speed at which things have changed, people look for finding ways for solace. And that brings me to this next question. we all talked about this great resignation during the times of COVID.
Yeah.
And what do you see regarding the workforce transformation, and why is the organization? Why will the organization needs to address this if they're to attract and retain high quality, as you just said, critical thinking type individuals? Because what I see in my own little world, and I live in a city in North San Diego County called Encinitas, we're about 4 million people in San Diego County. I've noticed since the pandemic that like you just said, less people in the shopping centers, less people on the freeways, more people working from home, more people buying online, more Amazon trucks running around the streets. You could line it all up and just look, and DoorDash and getting things delivered and all these other kind of things that have evolved. These businesses have all evolved, many of them, since this pandemic, right? And many of them are thriving like crazy. So how do I, in an organization, try and find and attract these kind of employees? And I know some of the corporations have said, no, you've got to come, as my son works for Adobe, you got to be in there 2 days a week. Or if you're at Salesforce now, I think it's 2 days a week, because all of them have kind of changed a little bit. But do you ever see them going back to the normal 9 to 5? I don't think so. Not going to happen.
No. Look, it's a question of balance, right? I mean, it's all, look, I mean, we used to be 100% at the office. Then during the pandemic, we went 100% at home, right? So, and now it's kind of, we're trying out this new hybrid model whereby sometimes at the office, sometimes at home. I have a lot of customers all over the globe. I mean, when I travel, I'm now seeing planes are full again. People are traveling, so I don't ever see going back to, like pandemic where everybody's working from home 100% of the day, 100% of the time. I also don't see that people are they're just, 100% at the office and doesn't have the flexibility. What is true is that, people does need the freedom. They do need the flexibility, and it actually enables you to be more creative and be, and the creativity comes from a lot of intangible things, being able to take care of your family and take care of your health. That actually enhances your creativity, right? But so there's a balance of how we do this. And I think we're going to get to a next level of normalization where we'll get into this next phase where it'll be normal to work maybe 2 days at the office or 3 days at the office, a quarterly meeting where people comes together, the service providers or, the vendor goes in the customer side and spends a lot of time, then comes back to their home base. We'll reach to that next level of normalization, and we'll stop talking about either the hybrid model, it's all or nothing, et cetera, because I don't think we'll ever go back to how it was. Command control, it was 5 days a week, like the 2 weeks of vacation. We're beyond that, right? Leadership is about influence and inspiration.
And just pardon me, Faisal, but if you look at our gross national product and our productivity levels and everything that's going on inside these companies, the actual metrics indicate that there wasn't a reduction in this arena, that actually you're now seeing more and more people that are wealthy as a result of the stock market, the companies are doing better, they're performing better, and it's a result of them willing to shift the way in which they operated their businesses and break out of those old Piscean models. I'm going to call them Piscean models because they were pretty command and control. And so with that being said, your company deals with cybersecurity or the lack thereof and the affected issues with that. And we all hear it all the time about what's going on and to protect ourselves. What's the cost to our businesses associated with breaches in security? Because you advise the government as well. And how can businesses make themselves less vulnerable? Because the more we use technology, the more we potentially have these threats of cybersecurity from outside countries, from people inside our country, whatever it might be. So what would you say people need to be thinking about?
Look, I mean, if you look at, cybersecurity is one of the many risks among a lot of different things. So whenever we are investing in this new set of technology, and if you look at especially mid to large size organization where there's a lot of technology, cybersecurity is a critical factor. Security is a critical factor in general. How do you make those decisions in terms of what you are, implementing, how you're auditing, how you're putting together your barriers, how you're putting together your, daily audit, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't have that part and parcel of your practice, you are going to be, in serious trouble, right? So it's like, it's like if you don't, because your data can be stolen, your customer data can be stolen, your critical information can be stolen at any given time, right? Because the more connected you are, more exposed you are. So you have to protect yourself. And every decision you make in terms of new technology, risk factor from security is a critical factor. And we can probably spend like next 2 days just talk about the element of digital security and lack thereof to deal with it.
I think you're really just saying to the listeners, check your systems, make sure that you have a level or at least a checklist around the security for your operation, no matter what size your business. I think it's an important element. And again, there are companies that advise people on what to do and how to do this, and you should get in touch with that. And I think that's important. Now, you and I started off this quest here when we were talking about...
Greg, just one other point on that, right? So often enough, what a lot of companies don't do, they invest in technology, but they don't invest in sustainment. Digital security is part of your sustainment model, right? Meaning that the constant upkeeping and revisiting and that is part of your sustainment. So when you are making a new technology investment, if you don't consider the sustainment investment, then you're not doing a service to yourself. Sorry.
I think it's an important point you make. I mean, it looks like changing the oil in your car. If you're not driving an electric car, you want to make sure you're maintaining it. And even if you're driving an electric car, you better be maintaining it as well. Again, this is the book, Reinvent, with Faisal Hoque. We're going to ask this question because we started, or pre the show, we started talking about AI, and we've actually delved in it a little bit. But you stated in the book that opting for digitization without the added impact of complementary technology is akin to getting electricity in the early 20th century, but choosing to never plug it in. In your expert opinion, how will artificial intelligence affect many of the associated elements of doing business as we know it? Because it's one thing to say, well, yeah, I can go on and get Gemini, I can go on and get ChatGPT, I can go on and get all these places now to do tasks that I don't need to do anymore. A machine's going to do it for me, but I have to think it through to the next level. What are these alternative or complementary technologies that you're speaking about here in the book?
Look, so what happens is that, it depends on the task. Now there are different type of, if you look at AI, it's at the very initial stages. We're talking really about generative AI, which means that you have a model, you can feed the model with a lot of knowledge, and as a result, the model gives you back a pattern, right? So what that means, if you say, okay, I want to know about XYZ topic, you go to a particular engine that focus on that particular knowledge base, and it gives you that, right? So it's getting more and more granular. So you'll have an engine that maybe do medical research. You may have an engine that does automated image generation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a nascent stage of AI. As time goes by, it's going to get more and more advanced where it can develop certain level of critical thinking, but get to the same level of human level of critical thinking, we're probably 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years behind that, right? So how do you take advantage of these generative AI models? It depends on what you do. What's the task you're trying to accomplish. So, I mean, Chat GPT is a very generic form of AI where you can go and ask anything and everything. And so when you get the result back, it's also very generic, and half of the time it's meaningless, right? It sounds good, but it's meaningless, right? So it really depends on what you're trying to do. So you have to really start with what is it that you want to do, and what is it that you want to automate or augment that will be helpful for you, and then look for that particular tool. So let's take a very simple example. If you say, look, I have a large volume of writing that I have, and I want to convert them into PowerPoint presentation because I do a lot of presentation as a teacher, as a presenter, whatever the case may be, then you look for a different type of tool. So you're seeing this emergence of very specific task-oriented tool. The trick is knowing what would be helpful for the things you do, and then go get that tool, because what will happen with that is that it will allow you to do it faster. But even that example I just gave you, I tried out, I mean, just my personal example, I tried out about 5 different tools that does exactly what I just said. I got a lot of writing that I've done. I want to convert them into slides. Let's see what they come. Half of the time it comes up with stuff that are absolutely useless. The image doesn't match the content is bastardized, etc., etc. So you still have to go and do the work. But what will happen, fast forward 2 years from now, it will get better, and it will generate the right image, and it will summarize your work much better than it was, that it used to be. So
not pointing to any examples, but I have tried this beautiful AI, which is one that makes PowerPoint presentations, and I agree with you.
Right.
It's relatively rudimentary in its current stages right now. But as time goes on, just like you said, these are going to get smarter and better.
Absolutely.
My son, who's at Adobe, turned me on to stuff Adobe's done with the image creation.
Yeah.
Granted, some rudimentary right now, but if you do put in a good prompt, you can come up with some pretty damn good images, even for that, to like stick into your PowerPoint, right? So
absolutely, 100%. I mean, same with like I use a tool called Perplexity.ai. It's a paid tool. It's focused on doing better search, but it enables it allows me to choose different models, whether it's GPT-3, GPT-4, whatever, and what it does, it boosts the citation. So for even like sometimes I forgot what I said 10 years ago, so I will go in there and say, what did I say about this? Pull me up from this particular set of podcasts I talked about, and it will summarize and give me those citations, which is helpful, right? Yeah. So imagine if we can do that today, what will happen 2 to 3 years from now, right? It'll get to a totally different level that will be much more helpful than what.
Well, I think the complementary technologies you're talking about are more specialized, and they're out there and they're coming. There's more all the time, and I think people just pay attention because it helps to refine the feedback that you're getting out of the AI. Now, you address a roster of common digital transformation roadblocks in the book. Can you outline for the listeners with what those roadblocks are and how we best buy in and commit from a management standpoint to accomplish some level of transformation, even though these roadblocks could be in our way?
I'll just mention 3. I mean, I think overall we identified about like 12 to 15 of them, but let's take 3 critical ones. One is that a clarity of vision by leadership. Often enough, there is no clear idea what transformation means. Transformation is not just about technology; it's about your business model, it's about your culture, how you do things, et cetera, right? So the clarity of vision by the leadership is a critical one. Second is that clarity, the communication of that clarity and having tangible things that you can point to that the team as a whole needs to produce, and more importantly, why they need to produce is how you get them onboarded behind your idea, right? Often enough, leadership cannot articulate that, and as a result, the workforce can buy into it, right? So let's say we got to buy this new system and they're going to replace the old system, but you're not really explaining why you're doing it and how it benefits them and how it's going to benefit the overall organization at a level that's understandable by somebody who's like 3 level down who's doing a data entry, as an example, right? So that clarity and that translating that clarity into why and how it impacts them is a critical factor. And number 3 is that don't look at as managing the implementation of technology as the critical factor of transformation. Yes, it is a factor, but managing the process and managing the communication and managing the value that you're going to generate out of it is even more important than actually managing the technology, right? And the last one is the fact that you have to go where the money is, meaning what is the biggest value from a financial point of view that you're going to gain short-term and long-term from the investment, and managing the risk around it is another critical factor, right? So these are like 2, 3, 4, critical factors that we talked about. And it's all related to, by the way, not necessarily technology. It's about leadership and management and how do you drive innovation and the culture as much as utilizing what technology that you want to use.
Well, I know Reinvent focuses on that, and you do focus on this moving from management toward leadership. And you outline, and this isn't the first book you put it in, but your 5-step lifts process. And I think it's valuable for people to understand, because this lifts process, it's worth the purchase of the book just for that. And you can actually go back into some of your other books, and lifts is in there again. It's like a recurring theme. So it must be important enough for you to stick it in more than one book. Tell the listeners what the lifts is and why it would move people out of just managing and into one leadership and move the company forward.
Look, I mean, list is even for 5 steps, right? So, and at a fundamental level, the leaders who does well starts with not just them learning, but creating a learning organization. If you don't know what's happening outside, and if you don't understand what are the deficiencies that you're creating inside and where your gaps are, this is the inner and outer learning that starts everything. So it has to start with the learning culture, opportunity, as well as your gaps and how you connect your opportunity with the gaps. So that's one. Second thing is investigating the opportunities, where and how the art of possibilities that you want to take your organization to. Third is that you have to be able to formulate what's happening in terms of that vision and how that vision impacts your organization, the people, and making it happen, right? So if you look at learning, investigating, formulating, and then the third thing is that, the fourth thing is that you have to be able to, that transform that ideation to value creation, right? And the last thing is that you have to be able to sustain that model over and over again. So this learning, investigating, formulating, and transforming and sustaining is essentially the 5-step model. And obviously in the book, we go into minutiae detail what it means for each one of those areas and do it in a repeatable manner. But that has to become the cultural DNA. If it's not part of your culture, because transformation is not a one-time thing, it's a journey. You start, you keep repeating doing it, because as we were talking about, I mean, the same conversation I had 45 years ago and what we're talking about now, the fundamental remains the same. The technology is completely different.
I appreciate you going through that. And I think there's 2 of those, of that acronym, LIFTs. L is learning and S is sustainability. I would take the first and the last one. And the reality is, if you encourage a learning organization, if you encourage what I'm going to call curiosity, if you encourage this innovation within inside of it, and you find a way to sustain this key, that's a key one, your last one, within the organization, you will have success. And I get that you have 3 other letters there, but the reality, the first one and the last one, to me, probably the most important ones. in the chapter of the future organization, you speak about sustainability of in a transforming organization. How do leaders sustain transformation so that it's always it's the leading initiative inside the organization? It's one thing to make a change. It's another thing to actually sustain that.
Yeah, 100%. Look, often enough, you see the transformation is very personality driven. Leader comes in, a charismatic leader infuses vision, and it transforms to the next level. Then it takes a dive, right? The reason it takes a dive because you haven't put together the system that enables others to do the same thing as the charismatic leader did, right? So that system, meaning the way you think, the way you learn, the way you do, the way you reinvigorate a new technology, it has to become part of the cultural norm. So often enough, when I go to, this is very much applicable especially in a large organization. In a large organization, this whole saying that leaders are the people who creates other leaders. I actually said the leaders are the new generation leaders create systems and processes so that the creation of new leaders never ends, right? It's not a one-to-one thing. It's the cultural norm. So sustainability comes from creating that systemic thinking and establishing the process that allows the organization to learn and then ultimately sustain, regardless of whoever the leader is.
And you're emphasizing important points that I think, look, if anybody picks up this book and just takes pieces from the lifts process, they're going to actually be able to put a process in their business that literally could help the transformation of that business quicker, faster, more efficiently, and most importantly, developing the right leaders to do it, right? Finding who they are, the ones that are jazzed about it and really want to take on the initiatives and really are driven around, how do I want to call it? Transforming the business. And I would say you said it earlier, the culture, because the culture is so, so important. And that means it's the people. You're going to hire A players, not C players. You're going to try and retain those A players to stay on and get on with the vision. The leader is going to hold that vision and it's going to create great transformation and you're going to do good for the world. Now, in summing up here, the book's the study of transformation. That's what you're all about, almost every element of the business. If you were to leave these listeners today with some sage advice from Faisal Hoque to them on reinventing their business to approach the organization in a way to transform it, what would you inform them of, both the good and the challenging? What are they going to be faced with? What would you tell them?
So first thing I would say that become a conscious, mindful leader, because be conscious of what's going on within yourself so that the way you articulate your vision and the way you communicate and rally your team behind comes in a impactful and a positive way. And that's also allows you to understand what's going on outside of the organization. This consciousness of what's going on outside and what's inside and connecting the dots, it's what leadership is all about. So that's the first number one criteria of transforming anything. That's one. The challenge is that often enough we get very focused on tactical crisis of the day and forget the long-term thing that needs to get done in order for the organization to survive. So as a leader, it's your job to manage the daily chaos while having a steadfast look on what's going to be important 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now. And if you can't focus on that, then you're a crisis manager, not a transformative leader, right? So don't be a crisis manager only, be a transformative leader. So those are the two things that I will leave the organization anyway.
Well, I leave my listeners with this. I remember an interview I did with Rita McGrath around her book, Seeing Around Corners. And I think that what you really have to do is you have to have the ability to put the dots together. And you can't put the dots together, as Steve Jobs said, looking backwards. You can only put the dots together going forward. That was in his famous speech that he did at Stanford. And I think Rita emphasizes that as well. And to be a really good leader, you need to be looking into the future in the front mirror, not the rear view mirror, and not spending all your time with that. Data can be then derived to make decisions about what's moving forward for the next 9, 12, 16, 18 months to make you an effective leader. And that's what I would say, because I think that it's valuable. Go out and get a copy of this book, Reinvent by Faisal Hoque. We're going to put a link to his website as well. We're going to put a link to the book, and you can get it on Amazon. And Faisal, thanks for making this donation to whether it's Leukemia Society or wherever you're giving the money from the proceeds of the book. I really sincerely thank you for doing that. And for my listeners, you know, I have a nonprofit, Compassionate Communications Foundation. We support through that the people, refugees from Ukraine. We buy bicycles for the kids that are being displaced from their homes. And we also do that here in the States. I actually work on the streets with the homeless. So I would encourage you to support me in that endeavor. And we want to thank everybody for listening to Inside Personal Growth. And Faisal, thanks so much for your wisdom and support today. It was really great having you back on again. Let's not wait another 9 years in between.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor and pleasure to be on your show. Yeah.
And namaste to you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.